be good at all. So I think the smart move was to start Luis this week, and it paid off for them this week. Now, like you said, they can't just keep checking it down and be okay. So they're going to need to probably work Marquise in with Luis and get them kind of both on the field together.
Well, and Luis Perez, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt in this case, considering it's a first start. 5.8 yards per pass is just not going to get it done if the Guardians are going to want to win games. The elimination of turnovers and the elimination of mistakes was good. Like you said, he kept a cool head, was calm, which I really, really enjoyed watching, especially when he was playing against the LA Wildcats. The Wildcats kind of looked like the team that I expected them to look. Last week was kind of a, I want to say an anomaly, kind of in the situation of where it was an outlier, not something that I think was, going to be a testament to what the Wildcats are going to be for a team. So it'll be interesting to see what the Wildcats do moving forward, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with Luis Perez. Kevin, the St. Louis Battlehawks have a quarterback in Jordan Tiamu. They beat the Seattle Dragons 23-60. And in the process of beating the Dragons, Jordan Tiamu had one of the best games out of all the quarterbacks overall in this game. Everybody's talking about PJ Walker, but can we start maybe putting Jordan Tiamu in this MVP discussion or best quarterback in the league discussion?
We certainly can, and I think the one thing we need to look at with the first 3 weeks of play is, like, yes, PJ Walker and Cam Phillips have absolutely shined in all 3 games, getting the Roughnecks to a 3-0 start. But Jordan Tiamu, even though they lost to the Roughnecks in week 2, Jordan Tiamu himself has, one, used his legs to his advantage and has turned the game around. He has a very good arm. It's not like it's bad or anything. He's commanding the game, running a professional offense after only being out of college 1 year, and making all the doubters surprised. Because Jordan Tiamu has come into this league, and he has become a perennial star. He's kept the Battlehawks in games, and he's been able to be clutch when they need him to be. He is one of the best quarterbacks in this league. And yes, he needs to be discussed as an MVP candidate. Even though PJ Walker, has the stats that he does, Jordan Tiamu is showing that he is doing almost everything he can to get the Battlehawks every win that they need.
And the thing here on the other side of this game, the Seattle Dragons bench Brandon Silvers in this game in heading into the second half mark. And BJ Daniels is a guy that the Dragons fans have been kind of calling for probably about a game and a half now. And Silvers hasn't looked like the Silvers that we saw with the Memphis Express in the AAF. And I don't know if this is Jim Zorn's doing, because I got to tell you, looking at the head coach and listening to him talk on the sideline, he's an absolute nightmare. He's clueless. He has no idea what's going on. The play calls are taking way too long to get in. BJ Daniels provides a separate set of athleticism to the position. But I think similar to what happened with New York, I think that Seattle is going to have to figure something out to stretch the field, because they can't solely rely on just BJ Daniels' legs to win games, can they?
Well, and that's one thing to bring up here. Yes, BJ Daniels came in and seemed to lead the offense better, but that's because he's just more athletic. Also, St. Louis wasn't prepared for BJ Daniels. Yes, you probably do a little bit to prepare for him, but you don't have a game plan in place for that kind of quarterback when Brandon Silvers is the opposite. So I'm going to chalk some of it up to that. I'm going to chalk some of it up to just BJ Daniels being more athletic, using his legs to move around. The problem to me is Jim Zorn. When he's on the sideline explaining why he went for 3 points because it's the fourth quarter, and when the interviewer has to bring up to him, well, 1 point makes more sense, and he goes, oh, we'll have to look into that. That tells me you have no idea what you're doing on the sideline, and you're just winging it at this point.
Yeah, Jim Zorn literally has been probably the most frustrating head coach to watch, as far as the way that just listening to him talk, calling plays, anything along those lines has been absolutely dreadful. And it doesn't surprise me that's the reason why he failed as the Redskins head coach. We're going to go to Kevin's neck of the woods in this next game, the Dallas Renegades and the Houston Roughnecks, the game that we just saw. The Roughnecks win this game 27-20, but I got to tell you, this game was a lot closer than it should have been, Kevin. 5 turnovers, 1 returned for a touchdown, and yet you guys only win by 7, or the Houston Roughnecks win by 7, with Dallas in prime position to actually tie that game up with 4 turnovers. What is missing with Houston here that they're stuck in these close games despite all of these turnovers? They lead the league with 11, and yet they still can't seem to separate enough, because most of their 4 wins have been, by 7 points or less, or 10 points and less?
Yeah, Michael, I think the one thing that we see with the Roughnecks, yes, they are 4-0 now, getting the win over Dallas, 27-20, but their style is very conservative. Yes, P.J. Walker can throw the ball and put it in positions that very few quarterbacks can in this league and even in the NCAA and NFL. But looking at their play the past 4 weeks, each game has been close. The defense has, I believe they've given up the most points. I believe so. I think they're either first or second in that category. And even though in the right moments their defense comes in clutch, they had 4 turnovers, that defense, 1 fumble, and then 3 interceptions. P.J. Walker threw a pick in this game as well, but it wasn't like it was a bad pick. He threw it in
5 interceptions, 5 turnovers. It was 4 interceptions.
Oh, okay. So
they had a 5th one at the end of the game when the Roughnecks were down on the 2-yard line, and it ball bounced out of Flynn Nagel's hands, and DeMarcus Gates made a hell of a play at the 2-yard line.
Okay, so 4 interceptions and a fumble. P.J. Walker had an interception of his own. That interception wasn't even a bad interception. The safety just come up and snatched it from the receiver's hands. So, but each game, like, yes, the offense does put in the work and the defense does stop when they need to, but at times each side of the ball for the Roughnecks stalls out at a certain point and then randomly gets its boost back and they start scoring and scoring and scoring. And the defense also, they give up points, but then they stop the offense after a while, but then they let them score again. So it's a very up and down. But during the game for the Roughnecks, they have great structure, but they stall out from time to time.
Yeah, and here's one of the things that I have to say about the Roughnecks is, despite their 4-0 record, I don't see them as a complete team. I don't know what it is. I know that P.J. Walker is playing great. Cam Phillips had a 1-catch game this week, but their other receivers stepped up big. Khalil Lewis looked good. Blake Jackson caught a touchdown. Sammy Coates even made some plays, surprisingly. He actually knows how to catch a ball. It was nice to see that, but I think that the Roughnecks still need to try to find a way to utilize more of a rushing attack somewhere across the board. They can't solely rely on their defense to continually bail them out, because as we've seen with teams that have done this in the past, it eventually comes back and haunts them. It's the same thing that we've seen with Dallas, that their really dreadful starts in the first half came back and bit them in the butt today. DC's looking terrible on the road. They can't continue. These teams can't continue to do that in order to be able to make a championship run. So far, the only team that I've seen that's complete is St. Louis in this situation. Join in on the conversation at AFN Talk across all social media platform. This is XFL Now here on the Alternative Football News Network. This is XFL Now. Sunday nights, new show time, 8 p.m. Eastern. This is our new day. This is where we're going to be discussing the XFL as far as the week is concerned. Now, one of the things that has been, Mark, one of the things that's been really, really driven home is the attendance of these games. And some of these venues, are they too big? I personally don't think so, because I think that we're still seeing decent turnouts. I mean, we had over 12,000 fans in New York, on Saturday with whipping wind, snow, brutally cold. I mean, you're down from that part. I mean, how cold was it in that area? yesterday.
It was freezing. If I had season tickets, yes, I would have been at the game. But otherwise, I wouldn't want to have been there and sit there in just bitter cold when that wind blew, and it was blowing a lot yesterday.
And that's one of the things that I think that some people are failing to realize is cold weather games are going to be a struggle with attendance in general because the XFL is a new league. I mean, make no mistake about it. This is not the XFL 2000. This is not the XFL 1 incarnation. This is a different league. So fans aren't really invested in that team just yet. So it's not like the Jets or the Giants where they've had longevity and had numerous, years of being able to build this up to get to the point of, getting that fan base. But 12,000 people in that kind of weather, that's got to be something that has got to make XFL officials kind of feel a little giddy about, don't you think?
Well, especially when you're talking about a team coming off of 2 losses where they got just destroyed on the road and looked like a mess doing it with penalties and everything, and you still got 12,000 people to show up to see that game against a. You have to also take into effect it was LA they were playing, which is completely across the country. So that means you're getting less fans who are going to travel, especially from LA to New York where it's cold. They're not leaving their lovely 75-degree weather out there. It's great out there. You're not coming to New York. So you also lose out on probably a couple thousand people just who are away fans on top of that. And families. You think families of LA players all wanted to come and watch them in that cold? No. So
exactly.
It was just, it's New York it was still February. In February, on a team who's been playing bad against a team from the West Coast. Just all things that built well into one. 12,000 is a great number. And no, the stadiums are not too big. You're wanting to grow and get bigger as you go along. You need stadiums who can hold more people.
RJ, you got a pretty good grasp on venues and in places that people play and or teams play and whatnot. I got to ask you, there's this talk now that supposedly the Guardians could potentially be relocated out of MetLife into Red Bull Arena or Red Bull Stadium or whatever it's called. Is this a good idea to downsize after the first year? Wouldn't it have made more sense to kind of go to the smaller venue first and then kind of progressively, move forward to the bigger arenas, bigger venues?
Even if Vince is bleeding money doing this, the worst thing he can do is leave MetLife, because that says, I have no faith that the fans will show up and draw over 20,000, which is roughly what Red Bull Arena holds. If you say you have no confidence in the fans, why should they have any confidence in the product you're putting out there? That is the worst message he could send. Also, I'm sorry. I'd rather be at an NFL venue than an MLS venue any day of the week. I mean, this place hosted a Super Bowl. I don't think the New York Red Bulls have hosted anything notable over there. So, yeah, no. Also, I don't want to go any farther into that part of New Jersey than I have to.
And so, to be fair, I agree with you in this situation, because I think the mystique of MetLife Stadium should be a draw to some people that are outside the area. I mean, I'm heading to MetLife Stadium for the first time in my life, coming up in April, and I'm stoked for it because I want to feel the stadium. I want to feel the energy there. And in April, I'm assuming it's probably going to be a lot better as far as, weather is concerned. Well, at least I hope so. I mean, it's New York, who knows? Or New Jersey, sorry. But I'm assuming that it's going to be better weather. So I'm hoping that it's going to be a bigger crowd to really feed off that energy. But that 12,000 people, though, Mark, I mean, even in that weather, they were kind of had in that place. They were loud. They were very loud.
Well, and that's because they do a great job of trying to group them almost together where it still does seem loud. And that's just how the stadium is built also. The way it's the bowl shape, it kind of keeps some of the sound in. And the game was a good game. It wasn't high scoring, but not every low scoring game means it's a bad game. There was a lot of big moments in that game, and the fans were just into it. And that's what you get with New York fans. They're very passionate about their team. It's not always good, but they're passionate.
Investments and venues. One of the I think biggest pieces of news that broke in the offseason about the XFL that kind of flew under the radar as far as media coverage is concerned. And we mentioned it here on AFNN, and we had a little bit of a discussion about this yesterday. Kevin, out your way in the Texas realm or Houston area, Vince McMahon made a commitment of laying down a field at Rice University. And not only said, this field's for us to play on, but the school can use it as well. This is an investment for the stadium. To me, that speaks volumes because Vince is saying this is a commitment long term. And I think that we're going to start seeing this in different areas, in different stadiums, in different venues. We mentioned a little bit about St. Louis. Is this a smart decision to invest long term?
I went to the University of Houston, and before like training camps and everything, they were still practicing on it. But then he made the decision to put new turf down. But you also got to understand that the stadium that they're using that's on campus for U of H is an old stadium. But it's still being used daily by the school. So he went in there and put new turf in and made a commitment. It's just like, we want to use your stadium. We'll put new turf down. But you can use this turf as well. This isn't just for us. This is for you and the school. So we look at it. So even though you have like Raymond James Stadium, CenturyLink, MetLife, and these soccer stadiums, he's still putting commitment out there. It's just like, we're using your stadium and we're going to make the most of it. But at the end of the day, you're still using this, so we're going to give you a little something as well.
I think the investment's smart. I think longevity-wise, it's good because it's showing his commitment to not only the venues that he's using, but it shows commitment to the league by saying, we're going to be here to stay. I'm not going to just waste money throwing down a field for a University of Houston to use by itself. I want my Roughnecks playing on this same turf for, years to come. We speculated that St. Louis would be the next to kind of get some kind of upgrade of sorts. Mark, speaking of, with the investment side of things and us talking on it, I mentioned last night in our conversation that player investments or investing in these players and giving them an opportunity and chance to showcase. Now, these teams didn't always go for the bigger name. Some of the bigger names didn't even get a shot in this league. Is this kind of an overall consensus or an overall testament to the fact that the XFL is going to commit to some of these lesser-known players to get them an opportunity to get on the field in hopes that they return back to the XFL the following year? I gave a percentage of up over 90% will be back at the XFL next year. I don't know if that's a little ambitious or not, but I feel that with the way that this league has been, that this is an investment from the teams, the general managers, and the league itself saying, we're going to give you a chance to play. This is your opportunity. Call us home.
It's a good possibility. I don't think they went with these lesser-known guys for that reason. I think they just went with the guys that looked better on the field. I mean, yes, Trent Richardson didn't make the league, and everybody was surprised by that. But did he look that great in the AAF? No. What did he have? 2.4 yards per carry. Scored a lot of touchdowns because he was just the bruising back that they had. But so I just think they looked around and said, let's just get the best players. We don't need names. We're going to put a product on the field that doesn't need all these names around it. We need good play. And so far, that's what you're getting. And that's what I think the biggest takeaway is from this is you can have good football with people you don't know that aren't from the NFL. It still works.
Yeah, I don't know. I just was thinking that maybe along the lines, but I mean, a lot of these guys are younger. They're still all of them in their mid-20s. There's a couple that are older. I was just thinking along the lines of maybe that they were just kind of like saying, hey, give a guy like Taylor Cornelius an opportunity and chance, to be a backup. And I understand that necessarily isn't, that's just politics being involved and it's all hypothetical and because there's nothing that's come out to speculate otherwise. But I look across these boards as far as, these teams that are being played in the way that their roster structure is, And I just feel like that a majority of those guys are going to be guys that, yeah, they're on the cusp of being practice squad guys at the NFL, but a lot of them are guys that have been cut, and they're going to continue to be cut. They're going to get signed to the – I mean, look at the AAF. How many players ended up on teams at the end of the year there? You know, there was like, what, maybe 9, maybe 8? I mean, it's a single digit out of the 8 teams that they had. So it kind of is going to be – it's intriguing to see where we're going to go with the XFL moving into Season 2 and finding out which players stick at the NFL. At AFN Talk across all social media, you can give us a call at 310-876-8064 if you want to join in on the conversation as well. This is XFL Now here on the Alternative Football News Network. XFL Now. This is on Sunday night here. DC still losing to Tampa Bay 16-0. This game just came out of halftime. DC needs to make some kind of adjustments. They've looked absolutely dreadful.
Hey, Michael, I have a little chant for you.
Oh,
I got a feeling that DC's not going to win another game. They're going to fall hard right on their gosh darn face. Yeah.
Did you just come up with that?
Yes.
Stick to your day job.
Don't ever do that again.
That was dreadful. That was almost as dreadful as DC's play.
Yeah, exactly.
Almost.
Yeah, almost as dreadful as DC's play. This team on the road just looks so different and just looks completely awful. I don't understand how you go from being considered one of the favorites to win the championship to just being this downright brutally bad. It'll be interesting to see what happens with them next week when they're back at home. But right now, these road games have just not been good as we're 6 quarters into the DC Defenders road trip, and it's bad. Speaking of championship games and championship caliber teams, we all know that Vince McMahon, as far as his wrestling business is concerned, is extravagant, over the top, theatrics.
You don't say.
The first XFL, RJ.
Oh my God, that was
theatrical
insane.
And over the top.
Yes.
This one in comparison has been very professional, very on point. Nothing really extravagant, over the top. What's this championship game going to feel like? What can they do with this championship game to not make people get put off by it by kind of maybe reverting back to those theatrics?
I think you have to look at leagues of the past that did well. The USFL, they had like nice production, but they weren't going pyro up the wazoo and, obnoxious commercials every 5 seconds. I think you just need a good old-fashioned halftime. I'm not talking Super Bowl I Grambling State Marching Band type halftime, but we all know high school football is huge in Texas. We're going to assume the halftime is going to be, a bit longer. Have 2 schools play a shortened game for bragging rights. I mean, there's something that people are already invested in because Texas high school football is Texas high school football. It's its own religion. And then you can, draw more people in the gates that way because some people watch Super Bowl just for the halftime.
Kevin, we mentioned a little bit about this last night. We had a pretty lengthy conversation on it, and you mentioned something, a good point about Vince McMahon and his lack of, presence or lack of, presence in the media, I guess, in this situation. Is this something that we might actually get a chance, in your opinion, that Vince might end up being the presentation? He might present the trophy here. What do you think?
I think he will. I think the one thing that he wants to do more than everything is to make sure that he isn't the center of attention this time, because he did make it entertainment. It was the Extreme Football League in 2001, and it was entertaining. This time around, he has Oliver Luck, and Oliver Luck is the guy that's been around. He's the guy showing his face. But Vince hasn't. But for the inaugural season, the first championship game for the XFL, I think he'll be there. I think he'll be him and Oliver, maybe even him and Oliver Luck together, present the championship trophy to the winning team. Because he even stated he wanted to be in the background. He wanted to let the league be on its own without him messing with it. So I think he is going to be the one to hand out that championship trophy, in my opinion.
Mark, what kind of approach should they take here, in your opinion? What's the best way that they can make this game elevated and make this game feel different than the rest of the regular season without being, too over the top?
What I expect from them for the championship game was probably actually having a pregame. We all know that the game starts at 7. At 7 o'clock, it'll be the guys in the booth, and that's it. There's no people talking beforehand, but I do expect that for the championship game. I expect, as RJ said, a longer halftime, but I think that I don't know that they'll have a game, but I think you'll see maybe some Houston marching bands doing something out in the field for halftime. Stuff like that. Nothing big, nothing over the top, just little tweaks than what they have in the regular season just to make it just more of an event than it has been so far.
Yeah, I feel that the biggest part of this is going to be the lead up. How are they going to attack the championship game during the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference title games? How are they going to build up those conference championship games to feel different through the playoffs and the end of the year? How are they going to build the playoffs up through the end of the year? I think that the media coverage between ESPN and Fox is going to play a huge part, and they needed to play a huge part in order to make fans excited or draw fans in, even to make this feel like a big game type feel. Marching bands are perfect. Kevin, I mean, you're down that way. Marching bands are big in Texas, in that area anyways. So bringing something like that would be a fantastic idea. Maybe getting like a well-known university to come in and be the halftime performance. The band, the drumline championships for, champions for years, or the band champions for the last 2 years or something like that. It would be a good drawing point, at least for Texas anyways, because the game is in Houston. So that's a really, really good thought process. That's how I would approach it. I would approach it more like a bowl game, maybe like one of the middle tier bowl games at this point in time, than I would necessarily, like try to compete with the NFL's over the top or the national titles over the top, production of sorts as well. Any other thoughts, Mark, that the championship game is going to be longer in the sense of TV timeouts? This is not something that we have really discussed because they've done such a good job of keeping the media, the TV media away from interrupting the flow of the game. But is this something that might be able to have them add in a little extra sponsorship or a little extra advertising in here during the championship game to kind of, do we see this game get dragged out a little bit with extra TV timeouts here?
No, I don't think you will. I think you'll see pretty much the same as we've seen so far. Like I said, you'll probably get about a 30-minute to an hour before the game extra. The halftime will probably go from a 10-minute to probably a 15 or 20-minute halftime. And you might get 30 minutes after to, do the ceremony of presenting the trophy. The other thing we don't know yet is how they're doing the awards for MVP and stuff like that. Maybe they do that as part of the championship week or the game, do that before the game or after the game too. So I don't think you'll see more than just extra production stuff. No, I don't see the commercials being up, at least for year one. After a few years, maybe.
310-876-8064. If you have any thoughts, opinions of any sort here on the championship game as far as what the XFL can do to make this feel legitimized, make this feel like something that is on a serious level, make this game elevated, make this championship game elevated, what ideas can they do? What ideas can you throw at them? Don't forget about the fan network on XFL.com as well. Join in the conversation at AFN Talk across all social media as well. This is XFL Now here on the Alternative Football News Network. XFL Now. Tonight we're going to shorten up a little bit as far as the show is concerned. We got one last thing here that we want to discuss. And this is a consensus here with the Alternative Football News Network across the board, and I feel that this is such an of everything that is all, and we've seen in the past whether it's been blown call, a missed call, the incorrect call, officials throwing a flag every 35 seconds. 8 plays in a row. There was a playoff game this past year in the NFL where 8 plays in a row there was a penalty, and I understand that you're trying to clean up the game a little bit and try to get these players to stop trying to get away with certain things. The XFL has done such a great job with coaching up their officials, considering the fact that these are not full-time officials. These are officials that are next man up. These are college officials coming up trying to continue building a resume for themselves to try to continually move forward with their career as referees. The officials have done a superb job here at the XFL level. They've done a good job of keeping the game flow moving, keeping their flags in the pocket if it doesn't seem like it's completely legit. And they've done a really good job, I think, at discussing penalties where flags have been thrown and then they pick up the flag, or they discuss it, let it give it a chance to go to replay booth and make the correct call. They have made more correct calls in this year, just this 4 weeks, than I think that we've seen in the NFL last 3 years. I know that seems like a very extravagant thing to say, but it's pretty much true at this point. The XFL has done something that the NFL only wishes that they could do. And this is what's going to separate the XFL from other leagues if they continue to get this high quality officiating across the board for every game. And it's something that we wanted to give a shout out to here from the Alternative Football News Network to the XFL. Great job for Oliver Luck and Vince McMahon getting their heads together and making sure that aspect of the game wasn't going to be a storyline week in and week out. Yes, they've missed some plays. Yes, they've missed some calls. But overall, the quality of officiating that we have seen is something that we as football fans want to see every week. This has been XFL Now here on the Alternative Football News Network. Have a good night, and we'll see you next week. DC, turn it around. Good night.